It's Brian Preston, the Money Guy.
So let's transition to a serious one, because this is something I also know a little bit about. Let's talk about like tax prep.
Yep.
Because you can be penny wise, pound foolish on who you hire as a professional to help you prepare your taxes. And I think this is interesting because I have 16 years of professional tax preparation experience. I've represented clients before the IRS before and other things. And it always amazes me is there are some distinct personalities of your tax preparers that I want to cover.
And we work with clients all over the country, so we have a pretty wide berth of different types of tax preparers, and they are not all created equal.
So let's go through some of these. We'll call them stereotypes of tax preparers.
Love it.
The first one, you've seen this type in a few commercials, I think, for H&R Block or some of the others. This is the taxes are optional prepare.
Now, see, I'm reminded of a quote by Benjamin Franklin, right? Because I think they're all him. There's only two certainties in life, right? Death and taxes. That's the other one. So I don't know that I would agree with these tax preparers that taxes are optional.
So who was the Hollywood celebrity, the action star that didn't pay taxes and went to jail? It was
Wesley Snipes.
Wesley Snipes. So
Blade
Wesley
himself.
Snipes went to the taxes are optional preparer because this is the guy who says everything's deductible. What he doesn't tell you is everything's deductible until you get caught. And so so be very careful. That could be something that you're penny wise, pound foolish on the repercussions that impact you.
And look, that's a cute idea. Everything's deductible until you get caught. Well, I'm sure if they call me out, that'll be okay. True or false? You've actually been in or got a call from a client in an IRS audit who was physically crying in the middle of the audit because it was that intense and that scary and that uncomfortable and that nerve-wracking.
Yeah, here's another little tidbit because I know a lot of you guys, you know a lot of these things we talk about in the show, so you're always waiting for that little morsel of information that'll serve you well. Here's another little snack in the fact that if you ever get a true audit, I'm not talking about just a letter from the IRS. I'm talking about where they actually want to meet with you in person, hire somebody.
Yep. Because
I've had clients that an in-person was requested. They didn't want to pay me with the hourly rate, so they went by themselves, and then that said client called me crying because here's what happens in an audit. They can mushroom. They can go because, look, if you're the taxpayer sitting down with the IRS, they can say, hey, tell us about this deduction. And if they don't like your answer, actually say, well, tell me about last year when you took the same deduction. Oh, if you took that deduction for your personal taxes, how about for your business? What did you do? So you see how it all just starts going further and further out with the questioning. Here's how it goes if you have a paid preparer or an attorney that's representing you before the IRS. They ask you, guys, I'm going to have to go ask my client. I just don't know.
Yep. Question
ends. You move on to the next thing. You have to then provide clarifying data to the IRS later, but at least you move on. And that's the reality of what happens in an audit is that they are going to ask you questions that you need to be prepared to answer. But when you are the tax preparer, they're counting on you to know all answers. So be very careful with that.
So the first type of tax preparer is the too aggressive one, the everything's deductible one. What's the second type?
Well, this is the not my job tax preparer. Now, I
this
deal
was
with
the
these.
most frustrating to me.
Well, I see it all the time. And this is the ones that you see typically, the tax preparers that are in strip shopping centers and others where whatever you show up to get your taxes done with that today is what's going to show up on your tax return, meaning that there's not a lot of questions. There's not a lot of prying to figure out how can we save more taxes legally? Because that's one of the things I think that when I was doing tax preparation, I would not just send out the questionnaire. I'd actually ask the client, get on the phone with them, and say, talk to me about what you got going on financially so I can figure out if there's additional deductions. Because what I was trying to do is figure out how I could pay my fee.
If you can find them some tax savings that covered your fee, it's a win-win and they'll stay a client forever.
But that's not everybody. A lot of you guys, you probably have dealt with tax preparers. This is a transaction. You're going to show up with your shoebox full of documents. Whatever's in that shoebox is what your taxes get prepared with. That's not ideal either.
And look, it's not always the preparer's fault because the game is kind of set up against them. Tax season it's a short period of time, and they've got to crank through hundreds and hundreds of returns. So a lot of times stuff slips through. Word to the wise right now, if you're not reviewing your tax return sort of line by line, making it make sense, or if you work with a financial advisor and you're not letting them review your tax return, there's a chance that stuff is just putting on because A tax preparer got a 1099-R and just threw the income on there. We see this all the time with Roth conversions. Income shows up on a tax return that should not be there. If you would just spend a little bit of time reviewing it, show them how the flow happened, you can save yourself hundreds or even thousands of dollars in taxes just by going a little bit further, taking that little extra step.
That leads you, that's actually a great segue into the third category of tax preparer, which is, what is that? Because the what is that tax preparer is exactly, you just said it, is like we deal with all the time Roth conversion strategies where the CPA, will be like, I've never dealt with this.
There's a 1099R.
I don't know what that
must
means.
It's got to include
it must be
right?
taxable.
Gotta
Sometimes, so if you are dealing with transactions, because we've dealt with clients that have, if you have solo 401ks, if you have Roth conversions, there's real estate.
Real estate is a great example.
I mean, these things. If your preparer is not experienced, does not know what they're doing in these certain specific areas, you could get yourself in a lot of issues. So that's why penny wise, pound foolish. Know what you're getting. Don't cut a corner just trying to save a few bucks, because it is sometimes these professionals that you hire. We talked about financial advisors previously. Here it is with tax preparers. It's also, think about with attorneys. Just make sure that you're getting good value and you're actually getting the service that's going to cover the needs instead of just saving a few bucks.
Love it.